Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming out tonight for the Monday, July 7th, 2025 special Board of Selectmen meeting. All three selectmen are present, and we will open tonight with citizen comments. Any citizen comments in the room? Yes, Ms. Valerie Clark.
Valerie Clark, Ulm Road. I'll start by saying that if you tried to guess how I voted on 7-2, you'd just be guessing, and that there's a 50% chance you'd be wrong. My point being, don't assume something based on what I say next. With that, I want to articulate for you my observations about this budget cycle based on what I've heard and seen so far. Roughly 1,100 voters are expressing two issues. One is a dissatisfaction in the increase to what they'll pay in taxes. The other issue that's being expressed is that they've lost trust in the administration of the town and school. Fueling this is the reaction by numerous members of boards and commissions to those who ask questions. Rather than hearing what's being said, board members instead make insulting and degrading remarks when they should be addressing the concerns of those citizens, those who are in fact their customers, not impediments. What's apparent is the display of arrogance and the desire for power and control of these board members. If any board member feels they are not willing to carefully listen and adjust to what the citizens are saying, they should not be serving, and my emphasis is on the word serve, on a board. As for the budget cuts, and this is now my opinion, that are upcoming, I recommend carefully evaluating areas for the recommended cuts, and if the town budget has to have further cuts, then it should be in staffing and not funding. Specifically, not the highway or the transfer station, and not making up for it with other taxes like fee increases and fines and increases the citizens don't get a say in. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other citizen comments currently in the Zoom audience, because that's all we have?
Ms. St. Ange,
Yes, just state your name and address for the record.
John B. Lanky, 304 Brickyard Road. My comment is that it has to do with the mill rate and stuff that we have. And I've been doing a little bit of homework, and I got some paperwork here. If it's okay with you, I'd like to read it in. I would like to see this mill rate, if we can put a temporary mill rate in so we can get the tax bills to start going out and getting some income in instead of trying to wait to see how much money we got left in this previous budget before we exhaust that. I got this off the Connecticut website, Office of Policy and Management. If I can, may I read it in?
Oh, of course.
Okay. This is how a mill rate is determined. The Board of Finance or Town Council meet to determine what the new budget figure is and will include all municipality salaries, education budget, any equipment and other purchases needed, local services, etc. Then all other revenue, such as federal and state grants, are deducted, leaving the amount that needs to be raised by the taxes if there is a deficit. The mill rate is determined from this amount. Proposed budget and mill rate then go to a town meeting, legislative body, where taxpayers can discuss and may vote on the proposed budget and mill rate. My feeling on that, and this is something that has to be done between the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance, is instead of us going to a referendum, I'm getting tired of these referendums and the money we're spending on it. Why don't we just take it to a regular special town meeting Let the people decide then, instead of us spending this money and setting our own mill rate. Instead of 30% of people showing up to vote, why don't we just wait for 30 people to show up at a town meeting? It'll end up being the same thing. That's my opinion as a taxpayer citizen. So I would greatly appreciate that the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance consider this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizen comments? Floor is open for citizen comments. All right, with that, we will move to selectmen comments. So there's something that I want to share with the public right now and with this board. Obviously, I don't agree with Mr. Lanky's statement that 30 people isn't the same. 30 people showing up to a town meeting is not the same as nearly 2,000 people showing up to a town meeting. It would crush the voice and the vote of the people, and I will never be in favor of that. However, I do want the Board of Selectmen to understand that after consulting with Board of Finance Chairman Robert Wurge, Finance Director Bill Steglitz, and department heads, I've made the decision to cut non-essential staff and programs by furloughing until a budget can be passed by the residents. As we know, tax revenue is the primary means for cash flow for a municipal government. And with just a month or two of cash in our surplus account, measures need to be taken to reduce expenditures. This comes at the cost of employees and programming. The cuts will start at the top, as I too will not receive my pay, and I encourage every single elected official to deny their pay until a budget is passed, because we work for the people, and the people have chosen not to fund the budget. Furloughs would commence on July 14th and continue until a budget is passed by the voters. I have not determined exactly how many positions will be cut, but it will be significant and it will be very impactful and potentially devastating for some people who utilize these services. So that is my selectmen comments tonight. Open the floor to the other two selectmen.
Ken?
And thought on this.
Yeah, I know.
The what has the town attorney, if my thinking is correct, when we dealt with this back in 18, we operated off of last year's budget. If I'm correct.
I can add.
And it was 30-day budgets at a time. This is when all 169 towns were in the same problem because of no state budget. So I don't know if that's changed. We can't exceed last year's budget. Then we have to do it in 30-day increments. And I believe we did set a mill rate, but I don't remember what we had set at that time. Has anything changed with that, with the conversation with the town attorney?
To my knowledge, no, but this is also just selectmen comments. We cannot debate this option. It was something I couldn't bring to the forefront because I had not spoken to all of the staff people. I spoke to the staff people today. We can plan another meeting to discuss in detail potentially, but I feel like all I need at this point is comments and thoughts. I'm happy to look into that, but I have been in touch with the attorney through this whole process. This has been a 5-day debate looking at all of the areas. This wasn't random. It wasn't in one day. I spent the entire weekend. And I also spent a little bit of time with the attorney last night, just reviewing a few more items.
So if I could comment,
Yes.
I think it was 18, 19. There were 30-day spending plans put in place, but I don't think that began until the middle of August. I cannot remember if we set, it would have been the Board of Finance set a temporary mill rate. I tend to think I think we did, but it was the same mill rate as the prior year, and it was not a reevaluation year. Okay, with that said, when there's no income coming in, it's hard to pay the bills, as everybody knows. And I think that you have to start looking at what you can put on hold or do without. And I think, and I'm assuming that's what you're aiming at, is possibly suspending or furloughing some of the services that people in town enjoy.
Well, it's not that people enjoy, but it's just what's not essential.
Exactly, essential. So furloughing the non-essential services until we get a budget passed makes sense to me. I don't like to see anybody get laid off. That's probably the hardest part. I want to say that as a selectman and someone who does serve this community, I do listen to comments. I don't answer with inappropriate answers or disrespectful answers. And I do my best to serve the people and the taxpayers of this community. So I'm not addressing the comment that was made earlier, but I want to say that it has always been my goal to consider the taxpayers first. And I hear what they're saying.
And just to be clear, it's a furlough and not a layoff.
Okay.
A layoff, you would have to rehire someone. In this case, it's furloughing, which means it's just a temporary period. And companies do this when there's limited funds, whether it's a downturn in their in their market share, or when there's a downturn in the company, they will often apply furloughing to extend their ability to fund everything. So.
Okay, thank you for explaining that.
I want to make sure for the public, I don't want the public to walk away thinking that's a layoff. Because it's not. With a layoff, we would have to rehire people. They're fully expected to return to work.
Okay.
So.
Now we're getting, for the non-contractual employees, that is, they serve at the will of the company, the government, the town. When you're talking union people, those have to be, and this is what a labor attorney is going to have to come in. Any layoffs, deferments, anything of that nature has to be normally agreed upon. I'm not sure what's in our current contracts. And, I was involved in that for over my 29 years with the state. And the state ended up paying back money for putting people out and different things of that nature. So that's a fine line that we're going to be walking if that does come to fruition. The other part of that, with dealing with the furloughs, etc., could be considered by some as a scare tactic, a forcing an issue to get the budget passed. That could have not a good effect on us as well for doing that.
If I was a private company and I have chosen, I'm just going to express this, if I'm a private company and I'm running into an issue with finances because I want to operate the town like a business, the furlough option is my option. And I have consulted with the labor attorney. This isn't just Amy's idea. There are multiple participants and it's not a scare tactic. This is what reality is. Because if I was in a private company and all of a sudden my funds were not available to me, you can be sure that I would consider and potentially apply the furlough option until such time that things turned around.
You have access to the town attorney.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm saying you do. We have not heard from the town attorney, Suzanne and myself. So
Because it's not, but the decision is in my,
I understand that. So I'm seeing potential issues that could come with this. And I get, you got to make the cuts and do what you need to do to keep the town afloat or a business afloat. And like I said, it's always a lot easier in a private business doing it versus when you're dealing with contracts and that type of stuff. So I don't have the answers. I'm just pointing out some of the problems that we could have with this if all of our bases aren't covered.
and I appreciate that for sure. So,
This is not an easy situation for anyone. And I do know there's a lot of frustration from taxpayers, but from administration, from director, from, people on different boards. We're all feeling this frustration of this is not necessarily a situation that the town government got us into. This is the state not funding the towns and putting them in a situation that we're in crisis mode right now. And that reserves are so valuable. And now we see why, because when the reserves run out, the town shuts down. So I understand that you have to cut back the spending in order to preserve and make that the reserves go far enough to be able to pay the bills. Basically, in layman's terms, that's what we're talking about.
and at the very best, this will only be a 4-week issue. If things work the way it potentially could work, and maybe we're back out to referendum on August 15th or August 18th. Those are the projected days right now.
But if it doesn't work, it makes that small pocket of money that we have in our reserves, some people refer to it as a rainy day fund, go just a little bit longer.
Right.
And when it runs out, I hate to think what happens. So yeah, it's not a scare tactic. And I hope that people don't look at it that way. It's a means of making ends meet until we can find a solution.
Until we can get a budget passed.
Yeah,
I didn't say it was a scare tactic by us.
no,
but it
I
could
know.
be
Perceived.
Perceived. There's been a lot of, disgruntled people that are up in arms because of the reval, where the budget is, and the information that's going out that's not, and God knows that we've tried to put out the correct information, but we have a core of people that are out there and they are doing what they're doing to keep their taxes lower, putting out the information. And unfortunately, we're not reaching the other people that are also part of the community to weigh in and give their vote as well. So even when we were in 18 and we went into November, it was nothing like what we're feeling right now.
Mm-hmm.
The sentiment is very bad.
I agree with you.
Ken, do you remember what the vote number was? What the spread between the no's and the yeses were?
I don't remember.
I think
I wanted to look that up.
It just kept going down, and the biggest factor that the public was saying at that time was the fact that the state didn't have a budget. How can we put out a budget
Right.
and raise taxes when we don't know what the revenue that is coming in?
Right.
And that's what fueled that one back then. And we took a cooling off period until the state passed their budget.
Mm-hmm.
But this is not the case. We have a state budget.
Amy, do you want to schedule another meeting to discuss the furloughs, or have you already decided upon it? And I don't mean, this is not to insult you, but I'm assuming that as the CEO of the town, you are able to make the decision without the vote of the Board of Selectmen.
I am able to make the vote or the decision without the vote of the Board of Selectmen. Give me a day. to think about it. I'll work with Marie tomorrow and we'll determine some details, and then I'll probably meet with you both again if it's possible. Maybe on Wednesday, Thursday. Might have to be Thursday. So,
That's fine.
any other selectmen comments about anything? All right, we'll move on to agenda item 4. 2025 through 2026 tax warrant and rate bill at the Board of Finance meeting on Wednesday evening after the referendum. It was posed and it was put into our court to potentially set a temporary mill rate. I would say unequivocally, I've had a lot of time to think about this, as you both probably have, but I will say without a doubt that I am not in favor of doing this. I think if we set a mill rate close to where we think it might land, it's going to be a slap in the face to the voters who voted against the last budget. And I really believe in the voters having a say. I want them to have a say in the budget. And I just don't think, I think we reconsider it if the budget fails in August. And then maybe out of desperation, we set that temporary mill rate. But at this juncture, I wouldn't be in favor of it, but I'm happy to hear from both of you as to what your thoughts are. It is on the Board of Selectmen to set some sort of temporary mill rate. I do know that Scott Antonson, if you have questions about the process, is in the audience, as well as Rob Wurge, Board of Finance Chair, and of course, Bill Steglitz and Paul Hopkins was here. So we have kind of a full house.
The biggest problem that I see with setting a temporary mill rate, because of where we've gone so far with it, is if whatever we set it at, there could be expectations that that's what it should be. Based on some of the information, I guess we can't go above what it settles at.
Right.
That I don't understand. It might be a reason for that, other than it makes the accounting and refunding and everything a nightmare.
Well, what we got clarification on that, Ken, is that if you go over what it actually settles at, people don't get refunds. The total amount that was paid extra gets applied to next year's bill, next year's amount to be raised by taxation.
Okay. So the only other option is to come in, if we do set a mill rate, because we were at 19.29, is we know that based on that it potentially would possibly go lower based on the Board of Finance meeting that we had the night of the election. I mean, the vote for the referendum. And there was a couple numbers thrown around, right around 19 mils. So, and again, that could be a double-edged sword. You know, if we set it at that and it comes in at that, it's golden. But if we come in way low just to get some income coming in, it poses a problem, and they may feel that since we came up with that mill rate, that it's a possibility. Doesn't mean that it makes the town finances and what we need to do work.
Agreed. Suzanne, what do you think?
So I think it would be, I'm not in favor of setting a temporary mill rate right now. In 2018 or 19, we had a much healthier surplus. And so we had a little more time or leeway. So I think that we have to have it on our radar. We have to have some, because we can go until August, but we can't go much after that. We know that. And if we have to set a temporary mill rate and tax, I would love it if tax bills went out, because I would like for people to see what their increase would be, because we know that some people, it would be very minimal. It's a tough one because it creates havoc for the tax collector, but it's also very confusing for the taxpayer. I myself would be very confused by it. And as you said, if we set it at a higher mill rate than actually is agreed upon by the taxpayers, then we're not refunding people. And that's going to be confusing. The other thing is that we cannot send out the car tax bills. That would have to wait. And so it's just it's a kind of a mess. But I definitely was not in favor after the referendum of the thought of setting a temporary mill rate, just because of the confusion that it caused.
The
So
next question would be to Bill.
the what? Oh, to Bill
To Bill,
Steglitz?
to give us an overview of with the bills coming in, the school will be starting up the last week of August. What our expenditures are going to be on both the school and the town side, where our fund balance is, and how long can we operate without sending out a temporary mill rate.
So on a normal run rate, with our surplus where it is right now, you're looking at about a month and a half. However, we've already been in touch with all of the directors, that basically we are in essentially a freeze except for absolutely essential spending. So anything, for example, up at the school right now, this is the season when the teachers have put together their orders for supplies and the secretaries are going out and processing those orders and getting, none of that has happened and none of it's going to happen in the foreseeable future. On the town side, I sent an email out to everybody on Friday and we met earlier this morning and reinforced that point, that basically everything has to just stop for now. Because of our surplus position, we don't have a lot of wiggle room. So the more we can cut, not just personnel costs, but any other purchases, we're doing that. So, does that extend it out to 2 months, maybe 2.5? Maybe. But we are as we've talked over and over again in your meetings and in the Board of Finance meetings, we are in a bit of a tenuous surplus position already.
And can I expound on that just so that everybody's clear? I am also making the humbling calls to NDDH, to our software provider QDS. I've made those 2 calls today, letting them know that we do not have a budget in place and requesting some amnesty, so to speak, and a little bit of grace until we get a budget passed. So even those items are being held back. Things that people might consider priority are getting held back as well.
Bill, what is our percentage in our surplus right now?
It's right around 9%.
It is 9%. I thought it was 7%. That's a tiny bit better. Well, here comes the $1 million question. What happens if we do run out of money in our surplus and we haven't sent out tax bills?
We can borrow short term, which I would strongly recommend against, because then you're literally financing your payroll and any critical purchases.
Okay.
It appears setting a temporary mill rate has fallen out of favor with the selectmen. I respectfully disagree, but I am not an elected official. I really, really do not want to spend taxpayer funds on interest to finance operating expenses.
Well, even to do that, Bill, just that process to temporarily finance, how long would it take us?
I've been in touch with the banks already. It would probably take the better part of a month to a month and a half. It's not instant
Yeah, so that really doesn't do us any good.
unless the budget keeps failing. I mean, at that point, we would really be in a pickle.
And if the Board of Finance time frame wise, and this is for Rob, Amy, because you said you've looked at this. I know they're meeting next week to start looking at the budget again. Normally it takes minimum 3 weeks to get a town meeting and then get it out to referendum. Roughly. We're already looking at a month to 5 weeks just from this last defeat of the referendum.
current referendum dates that are proposed are August 15th, 18th, or 19th. So yes, about 5
Oh.
weeks.
And that's about what we got for finance.
Mhm.
Even with, and Bill's not sure about how long we can extend that out. Based on, delay in payment, because insurances, stuff of that nature, that has to be done. I mean, right now, we'd be looking at no paving, no nothing right now,
Right.
because we don't have the funds.
Yeah, that's already also on a spending freeze. It's
No, but I'm just saying, but that's
Right.
automatic, so,
right.
Do we have a contact at the state level? That we can ask for some voluntary help or help?
I can reach out. I think it's OPM.
OPM is one, I think. I was just
Um,
looking at my
just to
phone.
let them know what's going on so that they're aware of
Yes,
what's
and
happening in Thompson.
I think they can offer some advice.
You want advice from the state? I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I'm
I
sorry.
don't know if I go that far.
That's
I
that's
think-
a very good point.
But I think alerting them to the situation so that
But
they
that-
can monitor us
That's
Yes.
one.
isn't a bad thing.
All right. We do have Rob here in the audience.
I believe he was.
If he is, I'd like to get some feedback from Rob, what he thinks.
I'm not seeing him now. One sec.
Yeah, I see him up there.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
What
Rob, are
the
you here?
time, what the Board of Finance thinks of times and timeframes. I mean, obviously, they're meeting next Thursday, and this is gonna come up as topic of discussion, just to work on the budget. But what is the feeling of the Board of Finance having, having been able to sit on this since last Wednesday?
Yeah, Ken, we're scheduled to meet next Thursday, which is the 17th. So as Amy indicated, that would give us about mid-August to get through the town meeting and then to the next referendum. Where the board members sit, I don't know, other than the last meeting, that evening that we talked. And I think in general, my view from the feedback, and it was recorded, that meeting was recorded, that there was a need to go back with a lower mill rate with some additional cuts. And I'd say the bookends were probably all the way down 18 and a half, 18.5, 18.6, and on the other end, there were comments that it should stay at 19.29. So I don't know if that's helpful, Ken. I don't want to speak for everyone.
No, I'm just trying to think, time frame for, the board to work on this. You've been seeing it just like we have, but you guys make the final decisions to put it back out to us. I mean, you're also looking at, our surplus, working with Bill. I'm sure you've been talking to Bill as well.
Yes.
To get a
Yes.
feel of this. And as we know, you being a business person yourself, borrowing money is not in the town's best interest by any means, to keep it afloat.
No, Ken, it's not. And not to overly complicate things, but the opposite of borrowing money is investing money, and the town is unable to invest the money that it normally would in July and August, which is significant income for the town that we're not able to enjoy, right? That's going to get pushed out as well later into the year. So there's that complication. But I'd say overall, look on the last round, we've studied this budget. We've torn the budget apart line by line by line. I mean, I don't see the group going back into paper clips and office supplies. This isn't a $200 move, right? If we're going to go back in, it's probably sizable chunks. And I know, I'm certain that the group's thinking about that. So I don't expect it. I mean, I can't say it definitively, but I don't expect the meeting to go, the next round to go much past, next Thursday. If we need another day, we'll call a special meeting the following Monday. But I think I think we can work pretty efficiently next week, so that, to avoid spilling it, into another week, if that's helpful, Ken.
No, this was a lot of the stuff that was discussed at the meeting on Wednesday
Right.
last week. All of us that were in attendance. I didn't know if there was any other thoughts, having digested it any further. Because we even talked about the mill rate, whatever temporarily we set at can be a double-edged sword, because people will expect it to come in unless we do something. And I'm just throwing this out. You throw out a ridiculous temporary mill rate that in theory is unattainable, but it does get some income coming in to the town to operate. So if we, in reality, if we went flat with the adjustment, you're in the, and I'm just throwing out numbers here, the numbers that were discussed the other night, if we came in at 17 or 17 and a half or something like that, I mean, common sense is going to say, this is just to get, some cash flow coming into the town to keep us going, that we don't expect that. That's why it's going to be a work in progress. So.
Yeah.
All right. Any other thoughts on agenda item 4 on the board?
I definitely think we should meet again.
Okay.
And I think on that agenda, it should include just having a more in-depth conversation about a temporary budget. I mean, the process, or what we need to do, possibly a temporary mill rate and possibly a temporary 30-day spending plan, if that's the Board of Selectmen or the Board of Finance. But I think what I'm saying is we need to be organized and get our ducks in a row.
So you're considering the temporary mill rate?
I
Before
think
the
as a
next
backup
referendum?
plan, we have to know the logistics around it and have something in the back of our heads as a safety net.
Do you want to just plan for that for our next meeting on next
Yes,
Tuesday?
that's what I'm saying. The special
add it
meeting,
to
if you
that.
can add that to the agenda. Any other information that you can get that circles around that, so that we have a backup plan in place. I'm not suggesting that we set a temporary mill rate. I'm just suggesting that we have a backup plan or a safety net.
To go along with that, I mean, how long does Scott figure it's going to take to get the bills out, even with a temporary mill rate set?
Go ahead, Scott.
There we are. I had to unmute. From the time that we get a signed rate bill and tax warrant and get that over, then we have about a week to a week and a half worth of work between myself and Paul Hopkins internally, like bank coding, and Paul has all of his reports that he has to balance to. Then we get that file over to QDS to have the bills printed and mailed. You're probably looking at about a week and a half to 2 weeks at a bare minimum. That's why when you just said, Amy, a little while ago, that with the dates you're looking at as a possible referendum for for the next try would be sometime in mid-August. At that point, I think you said what, 17, 18, or 19 or something like that?
15th, Marie had calculated the 15th, 18th, or 19th.
So with the 19th, and knowing what we would have to do once we actually, let's say that was a successful referendum and we were able to put the process in motion, we would be hard pressed to get everything out so that we could meet our September 1st deadline.
It actually should fall right in line with a week and a half, 2 weeks.
Yeah, they'd go out like September 2nd.
September 1st, September
Well,
2nd.
they would have to go out September 1st by state statute
Right,
in order to then be the last day to pay of October 1st.
right.
And as far as you had said something earlier, Suzanne, about OPM and letting them know, well, technically they already do, because as tax collector, I have to file what's called an M1 every year by June 30th, July 1st, the absolute latest. But knowing that we were not going to have our tax bills out on time because we didn't have a budget in place, I had to then file for a waiver or an extension of the M1, which I did on June 13th. And I received that back from OPM on the 27th of June, that it was accepted. So they are well aware of the fact that we are in a holding pattern and do not have a budget.
Thank you for that.
Okay.
Board of Finance is meeting on is it this next Thursday?
A week from Thursday.
A week from Thursday.
July 17th.
Yeah.
Okay.
On the 17th, we will be meeting after their meeting if they present a budget.
Correct.
And we can talk about this at our next meeting on Tuesday.
Correct.
There's nothing stopping us, depending on what the sentiment is from their meeting on that Thursday,
Mhm.
that we could always add to our agenda, setting temporary mill rate that night if needed.
I would not be in favor of doing that.
I didn't say to do it, but it can be on our agenda as an option, because a special meeting is very specific on the agenda items. Doesn't mean we act on it, because we could just send it right back out to referendum without a problem.
I'm not sure what the purpose of having it on the agenda is. You confused me on that.
I was distracted because the KJ that came in, I think, was more of a Zoom bomber. So I put them in the waiting room, so I was focused on that. Can you repeat what you said, Ken? I think I missed.
They're gonna meet on a Thursday, based on Rob was just
Right.
saying.
Yep,
They pretty much expect that they may be able to wrap it up that night, which allows us to send it out to referendum.
correct.
But depending, because we can't look at what the variables are gonna be, we have no idea.
Right,
What may come out of that meeting.
right,
We're gonna be X number of weeks into this, plus what Scott needs. We may be forced to put out a temporary mill rate to keep the town going based on our funding. We could add it to that agenda that night. Doesn't mean we have to act on it and just send it out, no action taken. But on special meetings, we're very specific what we can address on that
right.
special meeting night. So I'm just throwing it out that, leave it as an option that night, that it's possible we may be forced to go into that area.
What is the last night that they can meet and we can still have a referendum before August 19th?
It's the 17th.
Okay. I thought they had the option of meeting. So that would put us at the 19th at the latest.
At the latest, yes.
Okay. All right. I see where you're going now,
So
Ken.
Ken, are you only thinking if for some reason the Board of Finance doesn't come to some type of an agreement? Is that the only reason you would put a temporary mill rate out? Or is it just if we were desperate?
It could be both.
Okay,
We don't know. They could be in total disagreement in their thinking. There was a lot of discussion on the second at that about a cooling off period and a bunch of other things.
right,
So we don't know, and we're going to get more feedback from, the public in the next week and a half.
mhm,
I can see that coming. So
Right.
we have to leave all of our options on the table to keep the town moving forward.
So I'd say let's cross that bridge next Tuesday.
Mhm. But I'm just throwing it out. So we
Only
can think about
because we would have time to get it added to the agenda potentially into our agenda. If
Yeah,
it's
because Marie could do it
decided, right,
Wednesday morning without a problem.
yeah.
So did we decide we're meeting on Thursday?
No, Tuesday.
We're going to wait for our meeting on Tuesday. You're going
Yeah.
to do the furloughs and then will you send us information on that?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep, and either of you could reach out to the town labor attorney if you so chose. if you had questions for him.
Okay.
Happy to get you his email address.
And which one are we using? Because we've got Rich Roberts, we've got Ken Slater,
It's Duncan Forsyth.
Duncan, okay.
All right, any other thoughts on this topic? All right, so we will take no action. And I'll make a motion that we adjourn this meeting at 6:45 PM.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you, everybody. Have a great evening.
Thank you.